Let's talk about tattoos, attraction, and long-term compatibility. This isn't about judging art or style, it's about decoding the potential psychological signals behind a permanent decision. What are you potentially signing up for when you pursue a relationship with a heavily tattooed woman? The research points to several complex, interconnected risks that go far beyond the ink itself. Risk 1, the specter of impulsivity that doesn't end with the tattoo. The first thing the data reveals is a correlation between tattoos and higher scores in impulsivity. On the surface, this can be incredibly alluring. Impulsivity is often mislabeled as spontaneity. She's the woman who says yes to a last-minute flight, who dances in the rain, who orders another round of shots and turns an ordinary Tuesday into an adventure. This energy is magnetic. It feels like living without a filter, and in the early stages of a relationship, it's intoxicating. But here is the critical expansion. Impulsivity is not a compartmentalized trait. The same neurological wiring that bypasses long-term consequence to acquire permanent body art is the same wiring that operates in other high-stakes areas of life. That thrill-seeking energy doesn't vanish after the tattoo heals. It seeks new outlets. It can manifest as financial recklessness, major purchases without consultation, maxed out credit cards for a fleeting desire, a disregard for shared financial goals. Emotional volatility, explosive arguments sparked by a single, misinterpreted word, followed by intense, passionate makeups that create an addictive cycle of drama. Infidelity, when the novelty of the relationship wanes or a new temptation appears, the impulsive mindset prioritizes the immediate dopamine hit of validation over the long-term value of commitment. A tattoo is a permanent decision often made in a fleeting moment, a breakup, a celebration, a moment of profound sadness or rebellion. This pattern, living for the now at the expense of the later, is a core aspect of her psychology. It's not that every tattooed woman is unstable, but the statistical probability that she may struggle with self-control and delayed gratification is higher. Relationships are the ultimate exercise in delayed gratification. They are built on patience, consistency, and the quiet, unsexy work of building a future. If her fundamental operating system is geared toward what feels good now, you will inevitably become the one who bears the cost of that short-sightedness. The initial excitement of the whirlwind gives way to the exhaustion of instability. And instability is the silent killer of love. When you see the ink, ask yourself, is this a symbol of artistic expression, or is it a potential marker of an impulsive psychology that could permeate every decision in your shared life? Risk 2, the hidden link between tattoos and the shadow of past trauma. This is where we must tread with empathy but also with clear-eyed realism. Numerous studies in clinical psychology have found that individuals, particularly women, with multiple tattoos show higher correlations with histories of anxiety, depression, and self-harm. For many, tattoos are not merely decoration. They are coping mechanisms. They are rituals of reclamation. A tattoo can be a way to claim ownership over a body that has felt violated, to mark a survival anniversary, to transform a site of pain into a site of power. A phoenix rising from ashes. A semicolon representing a choice to continue. A beautiful quote over a hidden scar. This narrative is powerful and poetic. But here is the uncomfortable truth you must confront: if the wounds that inspired the tattoos remain unhealed, you are not just dating her, you are dating her unresolved pain. And pain is not passive. It is active and volatile. It manifests as unpredictable mood swings, deep affection that suddenly retreats into cold distance for no discernible reason. Attachment disorders, a push-pull dynamic where she draws you close only to sabotage the intimacy out of a deep-seated fear of abandonment or unworthiness. Cycles of self-sabotage, unconscious actions designed to prove her own negative self-beliefs right, often dragging the relationship down with them. Her ink may be a map of battles she has survived, but if those battles are still raging internally, you will be drafted into the war. Men often mistake this intensity for depth. They see the darkness, the passion, the edge, and they interpret it as real. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. A storm is intense, but you cannot build a house in a hurricane. Dating a woman with tattoos means looking at her art and asking a profound question: is this art, or is this armor? And if it's armor, is she still at war? Risk 3. The bottomless pit of external validation and attention-seeking. Let's be candid, tattoos are, by their very nature, a public statement. They are designed to be seen, commented on, and noticed. They broadcast identity, rebellion, and individuality. While many women sincerely get tattoos for themselves, the psychological research consistently links tattoo ownership with higher traits of narcissism and attention-seeking behavior. This isn't about judgment, it's about pattern recognition. Here's why this pattern matters profoundly in a relationship: if her sense of self-worth is dependent on external validation, your attention will never, ever be enough. She will be perpetually hungry for the next hit of dopamine that comes from social media adulation, a life curated for likes, with suggestive photos framed as body positivity, and your concerns about boundaries dismissed as insecurity. Public admiration, flirtatious interactions at a bar, basking in the stares of strangers, collecting compliments like trophies. The chase, the thrill of being wanted by many, which often outweighs the satisfaction of being committed to one. In the beginning, this is intoxicating. You are the man with the captivating woman on his arm, the center of every room. But over time, it becomes a draining game you cannot win. You are now in a perpetual competition with the entire world for her focus. The need for validation doesn't stop at admiration, it naturally flirts with temptation. And when combined with the previously discussed impulsivity, it becomes a dangerous catalyst for betrayal. See the ink not just as art, but as a potential advertisement. And ask yourself if you are prepared to share your partner with her audience indefinitely. Risk 4, the correlation with risky sexual behavior and a craving for novelty. Sociological and psychological research has one of its most consistent findings here: there is a clear correlation between tattoos and higher-risk sexual behaviors. Studies show that tattooed individuals, on average, report higher numbers of sexual partners and a greater openness to casual encounters. The reason is fundamental: tattoos are a classic marker of sensation-seeking, a personality trait characterized by the need for novel, complex, and intense experiences and the willingness to take risks to obtain them. This manifests as a double-edged sword. The allure: she may be adventurous, passionate, and sexually confident. The chemistry can be electric and seemingly unmatched. The risk: the craving for novelty does not switch off. When the passionate early phase of the relationship, the limerence phase, inevitably cools into a stable, secure partnership, the sensation seeker may become restless. The routine of monogamy can feel like a cage. The thrill of the new may become a powerful temptation. The psychology is clear: the permanent risk-taking displayed on her skin can be an outward signal of an inward openness to other forms of risk. If you are a man who values stability and deep, secure attachment, you must understand that you may be investing in a psychology that is fundamentally wired to seek the thrill of the new, which is the natural enemy of long-term monogamous stability. Risk 5, higher aggression and a propensity for conflict. Personality research has uncovered a link between tattoos and higher scores on measures of aggression. This does not mean violence. It refers to a higher propensity for confrontational behavior, quickness to anger, and a resistance to authority or perceived control. In a relationship, this translates to heated conflicts: small disagreements escalate into full-scale battles quickly. There is a lower threshold for frustration. Inability to de-escalate, a tendency to intensify arguments rather than seek calm resolution. The fight itself can become a form of passion. Testing boundaries, rules and agreements are often challenged or viewed as suggestions rather than commitments. Initially, this fire can be mistaken for passion. A strong woman who stands her ground feels powerful and exciting. But excitement is not sustainable. What remains after the novelty wears off is exhaustion. A relationship should be a sanctuary, not an arena for constant psychological combat. When aggression is a default setting, respect erodes, and love cannot grow. Risk 6, the rebellion against stability and conformity. At its core, tattoo culture is rooted in nonconformity. It is a rebellion against traditional norms and a statement of individual sovereignty. This rebellious streak is often what makes a tattooed woman so compelling. She seems bold, fearless, and unapologetically herself. However, in the context of a long-term partnership, a rebellious spirit can translate into a resistance to the very structures that make relationships last. Resistance to commitment, the idea of forever, can feel suffocating. Resistance to compromise, seen as selling out or losing one's identity. Resistance to routine, the healthy, predictable patterns that create security are dismissed as boring. Studies show that tattooed individuals often score higher on measures of deviance, again, not criminality, but a psychological pushing of limits. This wiring is antithetical to the patience, sacrifice, and sometimes mundane work that a successful marriage or life partnership requires. You may find yourself constantly trying to settle someone whose fundamental nature is to resist being settled. The synthesis, a perfect storm of risk. These risks are not isolated, they feed into each other, creating a perfect storm. Impulsivity leads to poor decisions. Unresolved trauma creates emotional chaos. Attention-seeking undermines trust and monogamy. Sensation-seeking sabotages stability. Aggression destroys peaceful connection. Nonconformity rejects the necessary frameworks of partnership. This is why sociological data points to higher divorce rates among tattooed women. The ink doesn't cause the divorce, it is a marker, a visible signal of a cluster of psychological traits that make the long-term, stable investment of a marriage profoundly challenging. Conclusion: seeing the person, not just the pattern. Does this mean every woman with a tattoo is a toxic risk? Absolutely not. There are countless exceptions, self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and stable women who have tattoos as pure art, as meaningful milestones, or simply as personal preference. Psychology deals in patterns and probabilities, not certainties. The ultimate message is not to avoid tattooed women. It is to look deeper. See the ink not as a simple decoration, but as a potential piece of a much larger psychological puzzle. It is a signal that warrants curiosity and discernment. Before you dive into the whirlwind, ask yourself these questions. Is her impulsivity charming spontaneity, or a lack of self-control? Is her intensity deep intimacy, or the shadow of unhealed trauma? Is her confidence genuine self-love, or a mask for constant need for validation? Is her rebelliousness a free spirit, or an inability to commit to anything stable? Men don't get hurt because women hide who they are. They get hurt because they ignore the evidence that is plainly written on the skin, in the behavior, and in the patterns right in front of them. Attraction is biological, but compatibility is psychological. Choose wisely.